Okay, so let's look at the third adjustment for McMahon 2014 sole trader question. So the suspense arises as a result of the incorrect figure for mortgage interest, although the correct figure has been made in the bank account. So it's saying that mortgage interest is wrong. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find out how much the mortgage interest should be. So we're going to look at the question. We're going to find our mortgage. And it tells us that our mortgage is 6% fixed mortgage, including an increase of 60,000 on the 1st of the 4th, 2013. So we have 140,000 of a mortgage for the year, and then 60,000 then on the 1st of the 4th. So I have to do a calculation for that to find out what the yearly amount is. Then we're going to have a look and see, have we paid any? So interest paid for the first 3 months is 1,500. So it's telling us that that's wrong. Okay, so we need to find out how much we should have paid for the first 3 months. Find out if it's the same as this. Obviously it's wrong. So is that an increase or decrease? And find out what the difference is. And then adjust our suspense figure, which is part of our general expenses. Then the second part of that then, so there's two parts. So they paid 2,000 paid towards PAYE, PRSI and USC, entered only the bank account. So it's saying our bank account is correct. So it's saying that our PAYE, PRSI and USC is wrong here. So that is a liability. So what we need to do is reduce the liability by that 2,000. Okay, so usually you're going to have two parts to the suspense account. One would be your mortgage interest. The second part will either be a liability. VAT can also go in there as well. So VAT is a liability. So if you paid something towards VAT, you're going to reduce the liability that's here. Okay, and sometimes it can be a discount received or a discount allowed. So they're usually the ways they have this question. So when we answer this question, there's going to be 4 parts to it. So we're going to look at first working is going to find the mortgage interest, the yearly amount. That's going to go into your profit and loss account into your add operating section. Then we're going to find the mortgage interest due. That's going to go into your balance sheet as a current liability. We're going to correct the expense or the liability. The liability in this case, the PAYE, PRSI and USC. That's going to go into your balance sheet as a current liability. And then we need to adjust the suspense figure. So what they've done is our accounts aren't balancing. So they're coming towards the end of the year. So just threw it into an expense. So this salary and expenses includes our suspense. So we need to take our suspense out of our salary and expenses and put them into the 2 correct accounts, which is our mortgage interest paid and which is our PAYE, PRSI. So these are the 4 steps. So once again, like your goods in transit, like your accumulated depreciation, write it on a post-it, stick it up somewhere in your bedroom or wherever you do your study. And these are the steps you're going to follow when you do this work. So our first step is find the yearly mortgage that's going to go into our profit and loss account in a, sorry, that should be taken away from our operating income because it's an expense. So we need to less in our operating income or operating profit section of our profit and loss account. So you've got mortgage interest. We're going to find out the full mortgage interest first, and then we're going to find out what the difference is for these 3 months, what this error is here. So our mortgage interest, so we got a 200,000 is what we have for the full year. We bought an extra one on throughout the year, which was 60,000. So we've got 140,000 for the full year. So it's going to be 140,000. Our mortgage is going to be 6%. So we're going to multiply that then by 6%. And then we bought another mortgage then. We increased it 60,000. Multiply that by 6%. And we only had that figure for, so we bought on the 1st to the 4th, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we only have that for 9 months. So we don't have it for the first. So it's going to be 9 12ths. So we do our calculations then, 140 by 6%, and then we've got our so our yearly amount then for mortgage interest is 111,000. Okay, and that's going to go into less operating income. So what we need to do, the next thing we need to do is we need to find out what our mortgage interest should have been. Okay, so we know we've paid for our first 3 months. This 140,000. That's going to be our first 3 months. So we look at our fixed mortgage interest. We didn't increase it until the fourth month, the start of the fourth month of 60,000. So the first 3 months, our mortgage interest was 140,000. So we know from doing this calculation that for the year, it's going to be 8,400. So you have to find out of this 8,400, what should we have paid for the first 3 months? Because in the question, it tells us that the mortgage interest paid for the first 3 months is 1,500. And as part of this adjustment, it's telling us that that's incorrect. So of this 8,400, we're going to multiply that by 3/12 to find out what we should have paid. So you should have paid 2,100. What did we pay? We paid 500, so we're short, or 1,500. So what we're short by 600. So what we need to do is, in our question, we need to increase. So I'm going to draw on this. This will help you figure out whether it's a plus or minus. So we need to increase our mortgage interest paid by 600. So if we do that, now our debit side is increased by 600. Remember, your debits and credits have to be the same all the time. So what we need to do then is we need to correct our salaries and general expenses, because that's where our suspense is. So because our debit side is 600 higher than our credit side, if we take away 600 from our suspense, that's going to mean our debits and credits are the same. That's the first adjustment. Second adjustment then says this PAYE entered only in the bank account for 2,000. So we said that we paid an extra 2,000. So because it's a liability, our PAYE is going to go down by 2,000. Now our debits and credits are not the same. So our credit side is down by 2,000. So remember, we need to correct our suspense account because it shouldn't be in our salaries and general expenses. So to make our debit side the same, we're going to take away 2,000. So that's going to be our next two adjustments. So we're going to correct our PAYE PRSI. We're going to take 2,000 away from the 3,800, and we're going to take 600 and 2,000 out of our general expenses, salaries and general expenses from the 90,000, because it shouldn't be in there. And to make sure that debits and credits equal, we need to minus the 600. Because we need to increase our mortgage interest, so by 600. If we do that, the debit side is higher than the credit side, and because our general expenses is on the debit side, if we take it away, the 600, then the two sides are the same. And then for our PAYE PRSI, if we take 2,000 away from the credit side is 2,000 less, so we need to take 2,000 away from our general expenses to make sure the debits and credits are the same as well. So if you go back to our figure here, okay, so our little adjustments that we need to do here. So we said our steps: calculate the mortgage interest for the year. That's going to be taken away from our operating income. Find out our mortgage interest due. So our mortgage interest for the year is, so the amount is 11,100. We paid this 2,100. So what's due is this 9,000. So 9,000 is going to go into your balance sheet as a current liability. We then set our general expenses then that we need to correct. So the amount is coming straight from our trial balance. So our amount is 90,000. Then we're going to take away our interest, which is 600. And then we're going to take away our salaries, which is 2,000. So 87,400, that's going to go into your profit and loss account. and it's going to go into admin. Okay, so what I would suggest when you're doing this is that you fill it out on the trial balance, because then that's telling you how we need to do the adjustment. And the last one then is to do our PAYE PRSI. So the amount taken from the question is 3,800. We got our suspense, which is 2,000. So what we've left to pay, what we should pay, is 1,800. And that then goes into your balance sheet. Your current liabilities are creditors due within 1 year. So remember, so with that adjustment, you've got 4 things to do, 4 steps to do. So once again, stick it on a post-it. So find the mortgage interest for this year. That's going to go into your profit and loss account less operating income. Find the mortgage interest due. That's going to go into your balance sheet as a current liability. Correct the expense or the liability account, whichever it is. If it's an expense, it goes into your profit and loss as administration, depending on the question. In this question, it's a liability, so it goes into your balance sheet as a current liability or creditors due within 1 year. And then adjust the expense with the suspense. So you're going to look at the question, see what the suspense is. That's going to be your expense, and you're going to adjust it with your 2 figures. So remember, with the mortgage interest for the year, find out what it is for the whole year, get the percentage, find out the adjustment in the mortgage interest, multiply that by the percentage and the months. That's going to tell you the full amount. That's going to be less your operating income because it's an interest. Of the 140,000 or whatever you had for the first year, we need to find out what is the 3 months of that to find out what we should have paid. So we should have paid 2,100. Find out in the question how much did we pay, which is 1,500. So we need to increase our mortgage interest by 600. Then you're going to find out the interest due. So the amount that we should have paid for the whole year is 11,100. We did pay 2,100 because we haven't adjusted up here. So what we've left to pay for the year is 9,000. Then you're going to adjust the salary and expenses, or the expense for the year, with the 2 figures. So 600 and 2,000. So that depends on the question. And then you've got your PAYE, PRSI, the liability, you need to adjust that as well. So remember, we filtered out on the trial balance to help us identify whether it's a plus or a minus. You're not always going to minus them from your suspense account. It depends where they are on the debits and credits. So this is more of a debit and credit exercise than a plus and a minus exercise. So that one is really, really important as well. There'll always be 2 parts to it. You'll always have your mortgage interest, and the second part then, they're either going to give a liability, which is your PAYE, PRSI, USC. VAT can also go in there as well. That's the liability. So you need to know how to deal with a liability, or they could give it income and expense. That's your discount received and your discount allowed. So remember, learn how that's going to affect your trial balance, and then do the adjustments up here with that question.